Hi everybody, and welcome to video number 19 in my EFT series. And this video follows on from the previous video which I did about depression, and this video is about EFT for trauma. And because anyone who is suffering from depression would have suffered some kind of trauma in their lives. Now, I will say this, I do always put a disclaimer under all my videos, but I will mention, I do put it in writing, but I will mention it this time because this is even more relevant, is for you to take responsibility for your own well-being, because particularly with this video, the trauma can trigger a lot of things in you, sort of trauma you've been holding on for many years, and tapping along with this video might suddenly bring up a lot of issues. So as I said, do take responsibility, make sure that you've got a lot of other support from friends, family, as well as the doctor and everybody else, because it's, these videos for EFT, tap along are very good, and they're good kind of self-help, but when it comes to trauma, it's a little bit more tricky. So I say still have a look at the video and watch it, because you can get some ideas, and it can also help you to seek kind of more help that you might need. But just be aware that there could be some triggers, and actually that is, I did bring this teddy bear who I was given, or me and my sons were given, when we walked some 20 years ago, when my sons were tiny. We walked in the street, and an elderly lady and gentleman come out of their house and say, "Oh, would you like this bear? He used to belong to our grandchildren, but our grandchildren have grown up now, so he's kind of redundant in our house. So would you like them?" And we said, yeah, please, we would love him, thank you. And Rupert Bear has been part of my family ever since. And even though I've given most of the bears my sons had to other children to enjoy now that my sons are grown up, I kept this bear mainly because he's so old and falling to pieces that I don't think I could even give him to anybody else. God knows how old he is, probably 50 years more, I don't know. He's kind of becoming almost like an antique. But the reason I've got him here is because he is going to play a part in helping me with some of the tapping. Also, I'm doing these t-shirts, and I thought I would be wearing the t-shirt myself, but then the t-shirt can't be quite visible because I can only be seen in the video up to here. So I thought, well, if he wears it, you can actually just about see all, and it's a stay calm that EFT, and it was just my way of experimenting and playing about these things, being creative, which I enjoy doing, and that helps me with my own healing. And I've done this picture of the tapping teddy, and then I printed it on the computer, and then I did transfer it onto the t-shirt with an iron, and it was just a learning experience because it didn't go too well, but it doesn't matter. It's still a bit of fun, a bit of creativity, and like when you are doing creative things, it doesn't matter if people don't like it, if it's not perfect, as long as you are having fun and expressing yourself. And that's actually something people who have got a lot of trauma in their lives, they often don't want to be able to be themselves. They don't want to be authentic. They want to push that away because that is kind of too painful. And like I would share from my own experience over the years, I had this horrible illness which no doctor knew what it was. There was just no help for me, and already as a child I was scared of the illness. And the illness, I didn't even have it, but I was kind of scared. And my way of coping with these things was that I would just be doing things all the time and not think of my own issue. Everything was too scary. And I did have a lot of trauma in my life, but I did not want to acknowledge that the trauma was there. I did not want to learn about this trauma because all that trauma was very scary. And even in my family, everyone would say, "Oh no, don't you don't want to learn more about your illness, because as I was starting to learn a little bit more about my illness, I used to go and care for a lady who had chronic fatigue syndrome, and she thought, perhaps you've got something similar to me. And I thought, oh wow, there is someone who's got something similar to me, and there are actually books I can learn more and find out more so that I can help myself more. And when I mentioned this to my mum, she said, oh no, you don't want to learn about it, you don't want to think that you've got this illness. So she would want to push it away. And also my mum would like always say, oh, this medication can help you and this can help you. And you know, I was trying the medication my mother suggested, and you know, I was trying to do my best, but I said to mum, no, medication is sadly not helping me, you know. And even like my mum still today thinks that I have to be taking a lot of medication, and she gets angry. She says, and you know, like she says, if only Martina was taking the medication, she would be okay now. And medication can be helpful, and it, you know, if you are having issues and you're distressed and you can't sleep, then yes, medication will help you, but it's only something temporary. It won't solve the issue for you. I mean, you know, it will only help you to kind of mask up the symptoms and not to know what really you are about. And so yeah, I mean, it's like even my mum would be angry with me because I have mentioned that my father suffered from depression. And you know, I would say to my mum, well, you know, there's nothing bad about it, you know, it's just a lot of people have got these issues and there is a lot of stigma around depression. But if I'm going to push it out of the way, that's not going to help with my healing. And so I've learned through years of experience of pushing my illness away, of, you know, I became a workaholic. I used to do things all the time, and if I wasn't doing things, then I would not feel myself. I would feel guilty, you know. And my grandmother would always say, oh, you know, you must do things, you can't be idle, you know, and you've got to do things all the time. And so, you know, if I was having fun, this little voice of my grandmother would be in my head saying, oh, you mustn't just be sitting doing nothing. So I always felt every minute of my life with activities to do. And also if I was having good results, that's how I would be getting my love. So I was scared if I wasn't getting good results at school. Oh my God, you don't know how stressful all exams were for me, till one day I realized, no, I'm not going to be going through that. That's just silly. What difference are my grades going to make to my happiness in life? And the answer to that was, yeah, there won't be any difference. So I learned slowly, you know, so I went through life, I learned slowly that a lot of the programming I was receiving from my family was not helpful for me. And yeah, that's why I discovered EFT, because EFT helped me to clear a lot of my issues. But not just that, it helped me to become aware and learn who I am. And the first part of your healing journey is acceptance. And I started to learn to accept, you know, who I was. And it also meant that, you know, I was very ambitious. I wanted to do really well. I was, you know, doing a teacher training to teach modern foreign languages at secondary schools. And, you know, I knew I wasn't well, but it was my way of coping. You know, I thought, well, if only I can become a teacher and teach every day, all my issues will be gone and I will be somebody. You know, the family finally will think, oh, highly of me, you know. And then halfway through the teacher training, I became very ill, and I could not continue with my training. And that was the end of the world for me then. I thought, well, I will be nobody. How can I live with that? But as time went on, I learned to connect with myself. And today I even thank the illness that it helped me to slow down, to pause, and to become aware of who I am. And as I say, I'm very grateful that I came across EFT. And you know, one thing of me is, well, I can now help others. I can motivate others, and I can help them live happier, more fulfilling, healthier lives. And you know, I'm doing pretty well, even though I'm not doing it in masses, because you know, I'm still unwell and I still don't have energy. I still got a lot of fatigue, and I'm still learning and growing and everything else. And so I'm not sort of, you know, I don't have a huge big, you know, sort of clientele who I help, but you know, I do help friends and family, and you know, I would like to run workshops in the future. But for now, I'm just grateful for the little difference I make in the world. And because I've become authentic and true to myself, I know that I'm making a very good difference to people's lives, and that people like to come to me for help just for the very reason is because I have become this authentic person. And so going back to this tapping today, I've done this picture of the tapping today, and then I did transfer it, as I said. And so, you know, I'm kind of saying, oh, how can I explain to people what EFT is about? So that's why I've done this little folder, and there I've got the tapping points on there, and I've got a little sheep where I've done the tapping points there. The sheep just nicely fits in, is there. And then I've got articles which I've written about EFT, and then also I'm helping a friend of mine translate stories which he's written for children to help them explain about more EFT. And so I've put that there as well, so that if people ask me, well, what is EFT, and they of course want to see the evidence, I can show that to them. And of course there is nice pictures which show the tapping points and everything else. So, you know, for me it was difficult to know, well, where is this trauma? I was denying that there is a trauma there. And for a lot of people that might be the same kind of thing. So you can just tune in to that and see, well, where is it coming from? Because as you will be tapping through the trauma and, you know, sort of tuning in, more things will be coming up for you. And so what I'll do is just, I mean, you remember I always say to you in these videos, take a deep, after we tap, I say take a deep breath in and let it all out. And it can also be at the beginning. I can say, tune in to what the trauma is for you. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it look like? What emotion is associated with it? And so taking a deep breath in helps you to tune in. And also at the end of the tapping session, it helps you to rewire the neural pathways, because you are changing those from a place where there is a lot of, you know, when you are responding in fearful responses to happier and more loving responses. And another thing which I will say is I brought a glass of water because it is a hot day, but also after you tap, after each tapping session, have a nice sip of water, because as you tap, all the toxicity needs to leave your body. And if you drink a lot after the session or as you are tapping along, it's always good to have a glass of water right next to you. So after each of the tapping sessions, you will actually, you know, if you have a drink, you will clear that toxicity out of your body, and it helps your body to clear those things in a faster way. So let me just do a tapping around about trauma, because very often we say, okay, so for someone who doesn't know where is this trauma coming from, so connecting more actually to whatever trauma it is, you can just tap on the trauma, and even though it is not too specific, it will still help you to connect wherever that trauma is for you. And also to say, oh yeah, you know, I mean, it is safe for me to feel this. So I will say, even though I've got this trauma, I know I've got trauma because I let myself get abused. And I am not sure where this is coming from. And I don't know where exactly I feel that, and I've been taught not to express trauma. I love and accept myself anyway. Even though this trauma is too scary for me to think about, I can't even think of it, let alone express it. I love and accept myself anyway. Even though this trauma is too difficult for me to deal with, I love and accept myself anyway. This trauma, I can't even think of it. I've been pushing it away. I've been too busy to think of trauma. I filled every minute of my day with activities. Even my illness was reminding me to stop and pause, but I just ignored it. All this trauma. All this trauma. I've just been too busy because I couldn't cope with it. I used to live in my head, or I'm living in my head now. It's too scary to be with myself. So take a deep breath in. And a drink of water. And you know, in the EFT there is this thing called the movie technique. And it's about you going back to some of your traumatic experiences and making a little movie out of it, or a little story out of it, and telling the story to someone else. And if there is anything which is kind of too traumatic, then you tap it out, you tap through it, and you do it till, you know, it's all gone. And, you know, when we are helping people with trauma, you know, we want, you know, in EFT, we want to think them of their kind of earliest experience. So they might be having issues now, and of course, these issues are just repeating themselves all the time, over and over again. And it's also about, you know, it is the small traumas which will actually cause havoc in our lives. So huge traumas, like for example sexual abuse or rape or war, you know, all that, it is, or an accident, it is of course huge and very traumatic and difficult, but you know, it doesn't happen kind of every day. So actually it's the small traumas which will be causing havoc in your life. And it is the little things like, you know, your mom would snap at you just as you want to ask her something, and she's probably having just a very bad day and you don't know it, and you form a belief. And you form a belief that on that day that, you know, you're not lovable. If even your mom doesn't love you and she doesn't care about you, what's the point? And it is these little kind of, or another thing could be is your parents divorce, and of course this is a very traumatic time, not just for them but for the children, and you think, oh, I am responsible for it, and you keep on blaming yourself, and then you find it difficult to form relationships kind of your own. Or you've got a parent who badly wants to live their lives through you, so they, for example, had some ambition in their life and they couldn't fulfill it, and now they want to live their lives through you, and that doesn't allow you to be you. And or a teacher puts you down. He says, oh, you know, you won't amount to much because you're just not very brainy, you are not very academic, so you won't make it very far in this world. And this will get stuck with you for the rest of your lives. And either you accept that and you kind of say, okay, all right, I'm not going to be doing much, because if that teacher says that I won't amount to much, what's the point? But you can also take it the other way around, and you want to prove to that teacher that actually you are going to be, you know, better than that. And again, you will get yourself into overwork and beating targets, you know. Or it's another example of I've got this friend, and she's very good, you know, very good. She's got very good results, but she always wants to do better. She's never happy. She's very perfectionist, and you know, it all goes down to a time in her life when she brought the results of some essay she did at school, and it was she got 99% for it. And her mother comes and says, "What happened to that final 1%?" And so she keeps on going through life thinking, oh, you know, I'm not good enough and everything else. And it is these little traumas which actually do cause us a lot of distress, and we repeat those patterns over and over and over. And it's very difficult to, because it's all on the subconscious, this is all on the subconscious level, so it is very difficult to come to the kind of conscious level. And hypnosis can be one good way of rewiring your brain, but a lot of people are scared of it because it doesn't have a very good publicity. But actually EFT can do the same trick, and there are other energy psychology modalities which can help with that, and you don't even have to go into the hypnotic stage. So so going back to me earlier saying, well, you know, think of the earliest memory, and it never is that easy to think of the earliest memory. So you work through various echoes of, like, you know, you repeat all that, and it's best not to work with a very recent one, because these ones will still have a lot of, you know, you'll be still attached to it a lot. But you know, I'm just going to talk now about something that happened to me when I was very young, and I might have mentioned it in my previous videos, and it was about me finding this frog, and I could only keep that frog for one day, because the frog, my parents would say, would die if, you know, if I had it any longer, that it needs to be in its natural environment, back to water and everything else. But to me, this frog has become a big friend, and I didn't want to part with it. So when I come to release this frog into the wild again, well, into just a park, I've got a horrible tantrum, and I just stamp my feet, and I don't want to let that frog go. I want to actually kill it, because I think, well, if I can't have that frog, I'm going to kill that frog. And my mother gets, you know, she says to me, oh, I don't know you like that. And when I was a child, I know I wasn't a very happy child, yet for the family I had to put up on a face, I had to be a good girl and everything else. And I tried to be a good girl, but there was a lot of resentment. And again, it was about you know, the family not wanting to know what is behind all that, you know, to put up a good face, to put a mask, basically. That is a good way, actually, of saying, you know, I was putting up on a mask of being this very good girl, where underneath I was carrying a lot of anger. And so I will tap on what happened to me in those days, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on that little me. I will imagine myself tapping on that little me, and the reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to dissociate from that anger, which could trigger a lot in me. And it's something called matrix re-imprinting, which Carl Dawson invented, and that is actually a good way of, you know, tapping on yourself when you experienced that trauma. And you can give it just the name, just, you know, like, so I'm going to give it, what would be a good way of naming that time? I would call it, how would I call it? Because you often give it a name, and then you say, even though I had this bad experience with the frog experience, I will just call it the frog experience. And what I'll do is I'll close my eyes, and then I will go and see myself how I was then, this very angry child who feels, oh my God, I became on my own. So I'm just going to be tapping on that child, but instead of tapping on that child, I will just be tapping on this teddy. I will just be saying, this frog experience. And actually, as you're tapping on the child, someone else can tap on you. If you've got a friend, then ask your friend to tap on you. So this frog experience. Oh, I don't want to part with that frog. The frog was my lovely friend. Now I'll be all on my own. I'm always on my own. This frog experience. All this fear of being on my own. Oh, she was a friend. Now she has to go. Oh, I don't want to let her go. This frog experience. All this anger. All this temper tantrum. Oh, now I will be on my own. So now I will take a deep breath. And what I can do is, I can actually now, as I'm the adult, I can go to that little child and say, look, I'm here for you. You're not actually on your own. And that's something which, you know, all through our lives, I have learned, is that I'm actually never on my own. And as much as there was this fear for me as a child of being on my own, and this kind of anger of me releasing that frog into the wild, it had to do really with me being afraid that I don't have any friends. I'm all on my own. And yeah, so it's just, you know, now I can go back to that child and say, you know, you are not on your own, and you are a lovable little girl, and I will always be there for you, love you, and cherish you. And send a big heart to this little girl, and I give her a big hug and say, look, I'm here for you. If you need me, I will always be back. And so yeah, so I, you know, a lot of my life I was doing things which I really did to please other people, and I did kind of suffer quite a bit of abuse because, you know, I was doing a lot of things for people in my family, and um, you know, there was my father who suffered from depression, and you know, everyone says in the family, oh, I helped to bring him out of depression. But you know, as a little child, that was not my role in life, because I was meant to be kind of looked after by my father. And I was kind of repeating this pattern all through my life. I mean, my father was a very lovely person, you know, and he helped me a lot with my education, but at the same time, he would be very possessive of me. And as I was growing up, I was repeating the same pattern as going back to that frog. I didn't have any friends, and the reason I didn't have any friends was because it's not quite true. I did have some friends, but I did not have the friendships which I would have liked to have enjoyed if I made the choices about who I'm going to socialize with, who my friends will be. And I didn't, because my father was very possessive, and even when I was almost 18 years old and there was an afternoon family disco, he wouldn't let me go to that. He just said, no, there's no way you can't go. Like, if I'm going to go, it's going to be bad influence on me and everything else. And so I have often actually tapped on that time when my father says, no, you can't go. You are not allowed to go. So I often did this tapping to release that. And I have repeated the same experiences over and over again. So I was attracting boyfriends into my life who were taking advantage of me. You know, there was not that much love. I remember one boyfriend I had I just did every single job, every single job he thought of, I did it for him. You know, I did things. I went to buy him some heavy things, and then I had to set them up, and he wasn't really giving me much help. I mean, I remember I was doing some exercise machine I had to do up for him, and it took me about 10 attempts, because every time I put it on it was the wrong way. But he just laughed at me, and I tolerated him, and I was scared that if I don't do what he wants to, I'll be on my own. And you know, when my husband has I suffered a lot of emotional abuse with him as well, and it was at that time that I started to realize that actually it's not serving me. And I made the decision to go to counseling, and it helped me, kind of learn a lot about myself, and that I wanted to change that. And it was not an easy thing to do, but the psychologist was not very ethical, and she was telling me things to do which I did not want to do. She said to me, oh, you must split up with your husband because he's such a bully. And here I sort of say pause, I will stop. And because as well as helping you, deal with abuse, trauma, it's also about how can you help and support a friend who is going through a traumatic experience. And all I can say is that this psychologist wasn't really there for me. She wasn't walking the journey with me. She wasn't there for me. She wasn't supporting me. She was just having her own agenda, and her own agenda was that I should leave my husband. And yes, it is, if you are in a abusive relationship, then leaving the person, if it's right for you, is good. But it wasn't right for me at that time. And actually today, I'm grateful to my husband, because I have learned, he was kind of my teacher, and I learned a lot about myself. And, even him, that he was kind of abusing me, I said, stop, I need to stop and think and pause, and I did that. And yeah, he was just diagnosed with cancer, and it was my idea that I would start to do more of my things and to be more myself, because I knew he wasn't going to change. So I was going to you know, love, support and cherish myself more, and it wasn't that easy thing to do. But you know, today, you know, I don't regret that, because he was the one who taught me. And so we often, how would I say that, we often feel a lot of resentment, a lot of anger to people, you know, for people who have been abusive to us, who have committed some horrible acts on us, and that is okay. But at the same time, in the long term, if we continue to hold on these resentments, it's not going to be serving, you know, like, it's not going to be serving us. We might be thinking that we can't forgive that person, because if we forgive them, they are going to somehow be getting away with that all, and that is certainly not possible. And actually setting that person free, and, you know, releasing that anger and fear you hold because someone has, you know, done something wrong to you, that's not going to serve you. So I will wrap this tapping onto just that sort of you feeling a lot of anger towards the person who's done you wrong, and letting go of that, because that will set you free. And I know it probably doesn't make much sense, and that's okay, but setting yourself free from, you know, and accepting the situation will indeed be the first thing on your healing journey. So even though I feel this anger towards this person who's done something wrong to me, and I can't let it go, they, you know, they do have to suffer, and I can't just forgive them. I love and accept myself anyway. I forgive myself, and I forgive the person who's done me wrong. Even though I feel a lot of resentment towards the person who's done something wrong to me, I love and accept myself anyway. And I forgive myself. And I forgive the person who has done wrong to me. And I forgive the person who abused me. And I let that person become my teacher. Because that person makes me realize that actually I had enough. I had enough of this abuse, or whatever they committed towards you. That realization that I'm making now, that I actually want to give the love to myself. I no longer tolerate that. I love myself and accept myself. So that in that way, you know, like, that's the past, how I used to live my life, where I would be pleasing everybody, and deep down I would feel resentment. Or in the example of my father, you know, I wasn't allowed to go out and enjoy myself, and I did bear that, but I didn't like it. I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to have fun. Life was about fun, and I just had to, you know, I did feel a lot of resentment. So then I found my own space, and that taught me to have my own boundaries. And today, you know, like, if the situation was today, and my father said when I'm almost 18, no, you can't go to this disco, then I would have gone. Because I would say, look, Dad, that's nothing to do with you. I'm now almost an adult and I can make my own decisions and I know what's good for me and what's bad for me. And with that, I would leave it and I would go and do whatever I wanted to do. And that means that then I can have, I wouldn't worry about what my dad was thinking. I would just go and do it because I would be me and I would be authentic to myself. And I wouldn't have to rely on, what other people think. And, or I wouldn't need to kind of think, oh, well, if I do go, then my dad won't love me because I wouldn't have all these worries on my mind. But that's, that's life and that's experience. And, nowadays I live my life from my heart. And, there's still a lot for me to learn. We all learn all our lives. And, as I'm learning more about myself and setting myself free, and my health is improving, and it's only a small progress, and I'm helping to inspire others. And again, even though this video might not be quite perfect, it is, it's a learning journey for me, and others can learn and come forward and share their story and not to keep it inside. And when we do tap 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 tap, let's tap on love, because the love is something which we all deserve. And we've learned, if we lived through a lot of trauma, we didn't live from a place of love, we lived from a place of fear. So let's round this tapping, the last tapping round before I finish this video, on just love. So I want to welcome more love into my life. I want to attract more love into my life. So more love, more love, more peace, more harmony, more love, more harmony, more love. And yeah, one thing I was going to mention before I finish is, like, if you are supporting somebody else, it's okay to say to that person, oh, I'm sorry, but it's too difficult for me to help you or support you. I mean, I can only help you be there on that journey with you. But if that person says, well, what should I do? What advice can you give me? And really, you cannot give much advice to anybody because they need to find it for themselves. So yes, please share with what you would do if you were in that person's shoes. But we often think that we have the same experience as someone else, and people often say, oh, I know exactly what you're going through because I've been there myself. And that actually is not a very helpful thing to say, because not one experience in life will be the same for one person or another. And that is why, if you've got someone who is suffering, say, I'll be here for you. And sometimes just silence, just say, I'm here for you. And the more you yourself are able to be coming from a loving space where you've got your own boundaries, and when you love yourself, give yourself the compassion, self-compassion, love and care you need, the more you will be able to help support another person in distress. So that is the end of the video for today, and I will look forward to see you during my next videos.